Queen Valestra learned of her daughter's
Seni
attachment to a
aptal.
human through intercepted
Yaptıklarının bedelini
correspondence
ödeyeceksin.
delivered by her security minister, with the careful neutrality of someone who understood exactly how catastrophic this information would be. She read the messages in her private chambers, hands trembling with rage as scholarly discussions about comparative xenobiology evolved into conversations about favorite literature, childhood memories, philosophical debates that stretched late into station nights. The final message, sent 3 days ago, ended with Princess Ariath writing, "I miss your voice when we don't speak. Is that strange?" Valestra's roar sent her attendants scattering. A human. Her daughter, heir to the Kivari Empire, future of their entire bloodline, had developed feelings for Dr. Nathan Cross, a researcher whose species they'd only made contact with 2 decades ago. A species whose lifespan was a fraction of Kivari longevity, whose cultural compatibility was still being cautiously evaluated, whose very presence in Ariath's life represented everything dangerous about proceeding too quickly with integration. The political implications were catastrophic. The emotional ones, that Ariath might actually love this human, might sacrifice everything for someone who would age and die while she was still in her prime, Valestra refused to contemplate. She summoned Ariath immediately, the formal summons that permitted no delay. When her daughter arrived, Valestra saw truth in the defensive set of Ariath's shoulders, the way her elongated ears angled back in anticipation of conflict. "Is it true?" Valestra demanded. "Are you involved with the human researcher?" Ariath's silence answered everything. Valestra made her decision swift, absolute, designed to end this catastrophe before it could progress. Ariath would be recalled from the research station immediately. Communications would be monitored. Contact with Dr. Cross would cease entirely. And if the human had any wisdom, he'd accept the generous research grant Valestra would offer, one requiring immediate transfer to a facility on the opposite side of human space. "You can't," Ariath said quietly. "I am queen. I can do precisely as I determine necessary to protect our house and our people. I'm not a child." "Then stop behaving like one." Valestra's fury crystallized into cold determination. "Infatuated with novelty, blind to consequences, you will return home. This ends now." Ariath's eyes held fury that matched her mother's. But beneath it, Valestra saw something worse, the kind of quiet devastation that suggested this wasn't simple infatuation. Her daughter might actually love him. That made ending it even more essential. The formal decree came within hours. Ariath fought it with every argument she could marshal. She was an adult, a scientist in her own right, perfectly capable of managing her own relationships. The research project needed her expertise. And Nathan had done nothing wrong, had been nothing but respectful, had never even known Ariath's feelings had evolved beyond professional collaboration. That last admission made Valestra's determination absolute. "You will return to the homeworld," she said, voice allowing no argument. "You will cease all communication with the human. You will resume your duties here where you belong." "You can't simply order away feelings, Mother. I can order away the circumstances that enabled them." The restrictions Valestra imposed were comprehensive. Ariath's communications would be reviewed before transmission. Her schedule would be managed by approved attendants. Her research would be redirected toward projects not requiring human collaboration. She would attend court functions, be seen fulfilling her role as princess, and this episode would be quietly buried before it became scandal. Ariath's eyes blazed. "You're treating me like a child. You're behaving like one, blind to reality. I'm in love with someone who sees me as a person, not a political asset." The accusation hung between them, a truth Valestra wasn't prepared to examine. She'd spent Ariath's entire life grooming her daughter for leadership, for empire's weight, for sacrifices duty demanded. When had Ariath last been simply a person? Valestra pushed the thought away. Sentiment was a luxury she couldn't afford. Love is irrelevant when choosing appropriate partnerships, Valestra said. You will marry someone suitable, someone Kivari, someone whose union strengthens our position. Someone you choose. Someone who won't die before you've ruled a decade. The cruelty was deliberate, designed to shock Ariath into accepting reality. Humans lived perhaps 90 years. Kivari measured lives in centuries. Any relationship was doomed to heartbreak. Better to end it now than watch her daughter suffer preventable loss. Ariath's expression went carefully blank. I understand. May I be dismissed? Ariath, you've made your position clear, Your Majesty. I have duties to attend to. The formal address, the rigid posture, her daughter retreating behind protocol the same way Valestra had taught her. Valestra watched Ariath leave and told herself this was protection, not cruelty. That preventing pain was a mother's duty, even when the daughter couldn't see it yet. She ignored the small voice suggesting she was preventing not just pain, but also joy. Nathan Cross learned about the restrictions third hand, through a terse message from the research director. Princess Ariath had been recalled for urgent matters of state. Her replacement would arrive within the week. No further details. Nathan spent 3 days trying to reach her before accepting every message was being blocked. He'd known she was royalty, impossible to miss given the security detail, but they'd developed an easy working relationship that had gradually become something more. Late-night conversations in the lab, debates about consciousness that stretched until station dawn. The way she laughed at his terrible anatomy jokes. He'd been building courage to ask if she wanted to continue their friendship after the rotation, maybe visit Earth. Now she'd vanished without explanation, and he was left with half-finished research and growing suspicion that her recall wasn't voluntary. Dr. Sarah Chen found him staring at Ariath's empty workstation on the 4th day. You okay? Define okay. Nathan pulled up their last conversation, Ariath explaining Kivari constellation mythology. She just left. No warning, no goodbye. She's a princess, Nate. Maybe princesses don't get to say goodbye. She would have if she could. He was certain. Ariath was meticulous about communication, about respecting collaboration. Sarah hesitated. The rumor is her mother found out about you too. There is no us two. We're colleagues, friends. Who talk until 3 in the morning about philosophy. Sarah's expression was gentle. Everyone on the station could see it. Maybe her mother could too. The implication settled heavily. If Queen Valestra had intervened, if she decided a human researcher was inappropriate for her daughter, then his messages weren't blocked by accident. He was the problem. The unsuitable attachment that needed severing before it threatened whatever future the Queen planned for Ariath. Nathan had never felt more powerless. What could he do against a monarch's decree, against cultural barriers he barely understood, against the vast gulf between a research scientist and an empire's heir? Sarah squeezed his shoulder. I'm sorry, Nate. He nodded, not trusting his voice, staring at the empty workstation and wondering if Ariath was fighting this too, or if royal duty had won without struggle. Wondering if he'd ever know. 6 weeks after her forced return, Ariath stood in her mother's chambers with a formal petition signed by 3 senior nobles, requesting she be allowed to complete her research rotation, citing damage to Kivari's scientific credibility if their most prominent xenobiologist couldn't finish her work due to personal complications. Valestra read it, recognizing the political maneuvering, her daughter learning to use leverage to find paths around absolute authority. She should have been proud. Instead, she felt control slipping. This is about the human, Valestra said. This is about my work, Ariath corrected, which includes collaboration with Dr. Cross. But it's also about my reputation, about Kivari's standing, about whether I'm trusted to represent our people. The arguments were solid, the backing made refusing complicated. If I allow this, Valestra said slowly, the restrictions remain, monitored communications, formal protocols, no personal entanglement. I understand. And when the rotation ends, you return permanently. No extensions. Ariath's ears angled back, disappointment, resignation. Agreed. Valestra should have accepted the victory. But something in Ariath's careful blankness made her ask a question she immediately regretted. Do you love him, truly? Ariath met her eyes directly. Yes, but I also understand that love isn't always enough. You've taught me that duty matters more than desire. I'm choosing duty. Isn't that what you wanted? The words should have satisfied. Instead, they felt like loss. Valestra remembered being young, remembered choices made for empire rather than heart. She'd accepted those costs as necessary, even virtuous. Looking at her daughter now, she wondered if she taught strength or simply how to bury everything that made power worth having. What would you do? Valestra asked quietly. If the choice were truly yours, what would you choose? Ariath's composure cracked. I would choose both. My work, my responsibilities, and also the chance to see if what Nathan and I have could be real. I would choose to believe being Kivari doesn't mean being alone in every way that matters. He's human, he'll die while you're still young. Then I'll have loved someone worth grieving for. Isn't that better than centuries without ever taking the risk? Valestra had no answer. She'd spent her reign avoiding exactly that risk, building walls so high she'd forgotten what it felt like to want something for herself rather than strategy. Complete your research rotation, Valestra said finally. The restrictions will be modified. Your communications will be monitored, but you may speak with Dr. Cross about professional and personal matters. What develops is your choice. But Ariath, her daughter waited, hope and wariness balanced. If you choose this, you'll face opposition. From nobles, traditionalists, those who fear change. I may not be able to protect you from all of it. Are you asking if I'm certain? I'm asking if you're prepared for the cost. Ariath smiled, sad and determined. You taught me everything worth having has a cost. I'm prepared to pay it. Valestra watched her daughter leave, carrying the modified decree that would allow her to return, to Nathan Cross, to whatever future she was brave or foolish enough to build. The queen stood alone, surrounded by empire's weight and the echo of choices made long ago. She tried to protect Ariath by imposing restrictions, forcing distance. But perhaps real protection wasn't preventing heartbreak. It was teaching Ariath to choose her own risks, to decide what prices were worth paying. She would send a message to Dr. Cross. Not approval, but acknowledgement that he'd become significant to someone she loved, and warning that if he caused Ariath pain through carelessness, no distance would protect him from a mother's fury. Not acceptance, but perhaps the beginning of